All right, this is episode 6 of the Hypothetically Speaking podcast. We put the hype in every hypothetical situation you can think of. Today, I'm joined by two dear friends, two super fans with me to talk about some college football. I'm joined by Tennessee super fan. Let me add this in: irrational Tennessee super fan Cole Kendall, along with irrational UGA fan Logan Bell. Fellas, how are you guys doing?
Doing good. Excited to be here. Appreciate you having us.
Yeah,
Sure.
well, we are excited to dive into some of the headlines that have been happening recently in college football, as well as getting into some predictions as the season starts in just a few weeks. So we'll talk about really a lot of quarterbacks and see how they're going to do next season, and then maybe even well into the future. So we'll start off with some rumored conference realignments and then also some confirmed conference realignments. There was a rumor that North Carolina, Florida State, Clemson, and Virginia are trying to join the SEC, would probably be a few years away. Some Pac-12 schools joining the Big 12, UCLA and USC joining the Big 10. I think we already had Texas and Oklahoma confirmed to join the SEC in just a couple seasons. Logan, I'll start with you. What are kind of your thoughts on all of this movement going on across college football?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely entering a new era for sure. But I think we all kind of knew that. I think everybody was expecting that this was coming at some point, and I think the NIL really just kind of set it all off. But I mean, I think specifically with the North Carolina, Florida State, Clemson, Virginia to the SEC, it makes sense. Take the money out of it, just geographically, they're around it. It makes a lot of sense. I definitely think it might take a couple of years, but I'm not going to be surprised at all if they all do end up joining the SEC. Maybe not all at once, but maybe 2 next year, 2 the year after that. But I mean, definitely Clemson. I mean, they do run the ACC, but I mean, I honestly kind of feel like even with what you just mentioned with the Pac-12 schools going to the Big 12 and UCLA and stuff, I think the Pac-12 might go away. And you really might, and same with the ACC potentially. But I also could see it kind of becoming a Power 4. Maybe the ACC does stay around. They get somebody else to replace Clemson, UNC, and all that. And maybe you kind of have your own little 4-team playoff within each conference, and then you have your Final Four. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of realignment that you can do with it. But the Big 12 and the Big 10, they had to do something. I mean, SEC got Texas and Oklahoma. So the pressure was kind of on them. They had to do something, but it's going to be some weird travel days going from UCLA to Michigan. There's going to be some weird weekends out there coming up in the next few years for sure.
Yeah, that was something that really stuck out to me, was the UCLA, USC joining the Big 10. Just thinking about these Southern California schools going up in November and just playing in the snow. You practice all summer long in California heat just to have to go play your biggest game in the snow. It just blows my mind. Yes, but the poor kids, let me just tell you, the poor kids. And then with the UNC, Florida State, Clemson, Virginia to SEC, that was something that was tweeted out, I think a little less than a week ago, kind of unconfirmed, very much a rumor. But Cole, what are your thoughts on these other schools and Clemson finally wanting to play real football?
I don't know if I buy into it yet. I know it's like the new mega conference is kind of like the big thing that's going, but I don't know if I completely buy in, mainly because of Virginia's terrible. FSU is terrible, and UNC is moderately relevant. So, I mean, it's just one of those where you're like, even Clemson, they're coming off the worst 10-game winning season I've ever seen. They won 10 games, but it's like it did not feel like 10 games. They looked awful. So I don't see these teams I would like to see, maybe Clemson, and I really like Miami coming to the SEC. I mean, look what they're doing with recruiting right now. They're throwing the bag around more than Texas A&M did. They are just sending it, and they're getting recruits. They got a good coach now. So I'm okay with teams like that. But also, I don't know what my biggest issue with the conference is. I don't get why we can't kick people. Everybody's like, let's add people. I'm like, let's get rid of Missouri and Vandy. I mean, the SEC is elite. we can kick them. I mean, Vandy, like
Baseball though.
Vandy's got baseball. Yeah, but like they're not even the best team in the state in baseball. So I mean, it's like, what can they say now? And they're not good at basketball. Kick them. Missouri is literally not good at anything. Kick them. I mean, kick them and then add Clemson, add Miami, I mean, you could do so much. It's like you can do like the soccer, like with the Premier League, relegate them, get them out of here.
But
So
that might
that's
happen.
my
They might
whole
go to
thing.
the ACC now. That might happen.
They should. Vandy football is never going to get it. Like they're never going to figure it out. At least give them somewhere they can go 6-6. Like the ACC is perfect for them.
And you say Florida State's bad, but Dion really might go to Florida State.
That's what I was saying. When Dion goes there, they can come to the SEC. But not right now. They're awful right now. But when Dion gets there and he brings every single player he recruited to
Travis Hunter? Yeah.
Yep. Then you know what? Send them our way. Like that's okay with me.
You could kick Tennessee, but
I would love that. I've been saying that for years. I want to go to the ACC. Like that would cut ties with. Maybe we could stop playing Alabama every year. They'd have to play Georgia every year. It's like, man,
just win beat Clemson.
Oh yeah, like just just lose to Clemson and be 11-1. Like, all right, fine.
So it sounds like you've got this all figured out. You were talking about kicking teams like Missouri and Vandy, but in reality, this is your escape plan to help Tennessee win some football games and maybe have a shot at the college football playoff.
See, but they can't kick a team like Tennessee because, I mean, we're also the first team ever to win the SEC championship in both basketball and baseball in the same year. So
yeah, did they play baseball this year? What?
Oh yeah, hey, we won the SEC championship. So we're talking about conferences here, and we won that. So
that's fair.
So we can't kick them just yet. You know, football. I'm not gonna say we're back, but we're close to back.
Don't be Texas. Don't pull the Texas.
No. Texas is still not back. Let's be honest.
Well, we will definitely debate later on about the future of Tennessee. Is Tennessee actually back? Hopefully it's not the Texas's definition of being back. But the conferences are definitely going to be something that's interesting to watch over the next few seasons, really. And probably even after that, I wouldn't say that if there's a bunch of movement over the next 5 years, that necessarily means like the movement's done. There's probably going to be, we're just moving towards two big conferences, probably, maybe not, but it'll be interesting to watch over the next decade or so. But we can move into this season. I think a little less than 2 months ago, ESPN released a way too early top 25 that had Alabama at 1, Ohio State at 2, Georgia 3, USC at 4, and Texas A&M at 5. With UJ at 3, Cole, I'll let you start this one because I know Logan's going to want to bring it home. Do the Dogs have a chance to run it back?
I'm going to say no. And the reason why, obviously me being a Tennessee fan, I want to say no because I just don't want him to. But also, I think you have to look at the NFL draft. And you can't highlight the NFL draft night and then expect to repeat. I mean, UJ made history, putting so many players in the first round, and then throughout the whole draft, they had so many people gone. And it wasn't just like you got your players that get taken in the draft, and it's like, oh, those guys had the NFL intangibles. Like, no, they lost like playmakers. They lost people they needed. And like for a guy like me, I think one of the ones no one really talks about other than through the UGA guys is like losing a guy like George Pickens. Like UGA's receiving core is tight ends now. And like as much as people don't want to admit it, like their number one is I think it's A.D. Mitchell is like their projected number one receiver. I mean, the man had like 400 yards last year. So you can't fully but he did win a natty. So it's like it
with
helps.
His catch.
And so it helps, but it's like you lost so many people. Yeah. And it's like it's one of those where it's gonna be so hard. And then I look at, honestly, I hate to say it, but I look at Alabama and it's like they lost some people, but they still got every highlight. They got Will Anderson, who's the best player in college football. And then they're bringing back the Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback. And it's like they do lose their receiving core. And so that's where I'm kind of like, maybe they won't be as good. But I mean, it's Alabama, which sucks. But I think they're still going to be very, very, very good. Very planted at number 1.
Yeah. And before we get Logan's thoughts on this, I just want to add in, UJ had the number 1 recruiting class in 2020, the number 4 recruiting class in 2021, and then the number 3 in 2022. even if they lost a ton of first round talent, there's still some talent there. Logan, is it enough?
It could be. They need help, but it could be. And they need help in the sense of, last year it was Bama, Georgia, everybody else. I think it's Bama, Ohio State, everybody else. And we might be at the top of the everybody else. But I do think we're going to be better than people expect. I mean, I don't think people are going to expect us to be bad necessarily, but I mean, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Ringo, and then our DB Smith, who would have started last year but was injured. Like, that's still 4 starters coming back on defense. And I know I'm forgetting a few. Like, we lost a lot of players, but they were good. They were so good last year at rolling people in that, we didn't really have starters, if that kind of makes sense. We had 15 people playing on defense every single game. So it's going to be better. But however, it's not going to average 7 points a game like it did last year. That's not happening again. But, and even offensively, I mean, say what you want about Stetson, but if you're going to have Brock Bowers and Darnell and Gilbert, who are just tight ends, you still got receivers like that. That's enough playmakers. And we have running backs. I think we're going to be good enough to beat Oregon, go 12-0, lose to Bama, and sneak in still. Like, I think we're going to be good enough to I think we're going to be good enough to lose by 10 to Ohio State in the 2-3 matchup. Like, that's Georgia's season right there. That's pretty much how I'm feeling about the team. We lose by about 10 in that 2-3 matchup. I mean, if you get in, we beat Oregon, we do go 12-0 like I think we do. Anything can happen. Once you're in, you're in. It's only 2 games, but I don't see them getting over the hump of Bama or Ohio State unless, anybody gets injured. Injuries, anything can happen, I guess. But yes, they can. I don't think they will, but I think they're going to be good enough to at least get back in the playoffs.
Well, you heard it here first. UGA is losing to Ohio State by 10 in the college football playoffs. That's how their season is going to end.
Specifically 2-3 matchup. Yep.
Specifically 2-3 matchup. So UGA will be number 1 undefeated until they play Alabama in the SEC championship. Then they'll fall to 3.
Number 2 undefeated. Bama will be 1 undefeated.
Okay.
So boring.
Sorry, Cole.
Yeah, no, I mean it is.
We'll tell Alabama to stop winning then.
Yeah.
No, I would
Not
love
our
that.
fault.
Like, that's what so many people who are like, since we live in Georgia, everybody's like, oh, you hate Georgia the most. I'm like, no. I actually hate Georgia just because of the Georgia fans. It's like, I loathe Alabama. I hate playing them. I hate seeing them win. Listen, when you're in Neyland Stadium and you just get beat by about 30 points and you have Alabama fans, they see you whipping out cigars and smoking in your face, it is just like, it is brutal. And so, like, even this year, I am just like, I dream about it yearly, about beating Alabama. We have them in Neyland again. Last time I didn't sell my tickets. I should have sold my tickets. And I'm going to go this year again. I'm going to sit up there and I'm going to, hope for the best. But
I know that
I hate them.
It was hard for you to watch both teams.
Oh, it's the national championship. At one point, I was really actually kind of cheering for Georgia until I looked up like a couple of my group messages and I was like, all right, maybe Alabama's not so bad. So it's just because I just can't stand it. I can't stand Nick Saban. I can't stand him. It's just one of those where it's like, I also like it's like the Warriors. I like the Warriors. I like a lot of things that they have going for them, but I can't stand them winning every year. It's just like, it's so cringeworthy. Like, even I like LeBron, but like when he's winning every year, it's boring.
Yeah.
Just boring.
Well, I wouldn't blame you at all if you hated UGA fans more than Alabama fans. I would understand, especially living in the state, being constantly surrounded by Georgia fans.
Oh, it's tough.
Especially this year. I'm sure it's brutal.
It's definitely a hard year. It used to be you had the fallback. You can just be like 1980, and it was just like it hurt every year. And so, but now it's
say that.
Yeah, now it's like, oh man, now I hear all about 1998, and it's like, oh god, here we go.
Yep.
Well, Logan, I know you kind of have your playoff basically already set at this point. With Alabama being 1, Ohio State being 2, UGA being 3. But I'd love to hear who that 4th team is. And if you want to make things interesting, if you had anybody else that may switch it up or anybody else that you were kind of on the fence about that may sneak in.
Yeah, I hate to say it because it's literally the preseason predictions that ESPN did, but I feel like it really might be USC. Like, I know they're new coach, but like they got Addison, the transfer wide receiver. Like, Caleb Williams is still Caleb Williams. Like, they're gonna play nobody. They're going 13-0. Like, and at that point, how could they not be in? I mean, I think it's gonna be I think it's a toss-up between USC and Clemson, maybe to see one of them will mess up a game and the other one that doesn't will probably get in. I think kind of a sleeper team that's kind of like a popular sleeper team. Utah is gonna be pretty good.
They play Florida first game too.
I was gonna say I'll get into that later, but they do open against Florida, and that will not be as interesting as I think. Utah will blow them out the water, but we'll get to that. I would probably say toss up between USC, and Clemson, but leaning towards USC just because. I mean, they're all transfers, but they're studs.
Yeah, Jordan Addison is definitely going to be a dynasty receiver target for me next season.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
they're going to fly through the Pac-12, like you said. We had a goal before the podcast started to go the entire time without saying the word Florida, and both you guys messed that up, but that's okay. To be fair, it was to give Utah a chance to beat them week 1, which I know
that's
what we're all rooting for.
That's a book it.
I mean,
book
yeah,
it.
book it.
Okay, bet on it now. I want to see the line. I don't know what it is right now. Yeah. I'm sure Utah's actually maybe favored though at this point if they're getting this high of the preseason ranking.
Yeah, no, they're probably like preseason top 10. I would assume they're good.
Darn. That makes it less exciting to bet on. But Cole, are you also an insider for ESPN? Do you have the same 4 teams making the playoffs in the same order?
No. So I've been actually looking through teams because I think this year we're going to see an LSU type team, like the LSU Joe Burrow type team. Okay. I think we're going to see a team that we didn't expect to happen, but then absolutely shows out. Whether that's Utah, I've looked at Utah a few times. I don't know if it is, but I don't think 2 SEC teams are going to get in this year. I think it's going to be 1 because unlike Logan, I do think Georgia's going to have one of their more of their Mark Richt type seasons. I think they're going to have one of those slip up games. I don't know who it's going to be. Hope it's Tennessee, but I do think they're going to have a game where they come out and they're just like, you're like, what is this? What is this team? Like last year, they didn't have it. Last year, they looked good every game other than Clemson. Really, the Clemson game, they looked pretty slow, the first game of the year. Yeah. I think they're going to miss it. And I think Alabama's getting in. I do think USC is going to get in. They play nobody. They're going to blow.
Will they play Utah? We keep saying no, but I guess they'll play.
But they're going to blow.
That's it. Yeah, but
like it's that's it. I hate it because they're going to be really good. Yeah. And then so I think it's Alabama. I think it's Ohio State's got this Ohio State team is listen, they're loaded. They're going to have to beat themselves, or injuries. I mean, that's one of those things where last year CJ Stroud went down. They had some quarterbacks sitting behind him. Now, if he goes down, I don't really know how they're going to look. So it's kind of like I think Ohio State will make it. And then Clemson's an interesting one because I think they're about to have a year where they're going to be starting a freshman about week 4.
Yeah, they need a quarterback. Yeah.
I think that Cade Klubnik kid they got last year is a stud. It's just when do they bench that DJ Ungulele and put him in? He's not good. So it's one of those where I think Clemson might get in, but there is a dark horse team. I don't think we're going to have the 4 we think. I think there's going to be someone who maybe even unrated to start the season that's just going to be like, how do we not see this coming? Like, this is unbelievable. And to be honest, it could be LSU. They're the team I don't know what they're going to do. They could be 6-6 this year. Yeah. They could be 12-0. I really don't know. Notre Dame's another team. I hate Notre Dame, but they're fitting the bill.
I don't think they'll ever put them in again.
I hope not.
They're 0-8 since like 90 something in New Year's 6 bowls and college football playoff. Tennessee, by an average loss of 21 points. They're 0-8 since 90 something in big bowl games. 0-8. Yeah.
Tennessee has the same amount of New York 6 wins as Notre Dame. And that's through this stretch
so
of time.
Do we.
Yeah, it's just like awful. Awful. Like, and this is a team that's a fringe playoff team, but I don't know. I really like their head coach, man. I don't know what it is. It's like they got rid of that bum, sent him down to LSU. And now I really like this guy.
I do like him too. They're going to have to, I should have mentioned it before with the conference stuff. They're going to have to pick one. If all this realignment's going on, they have to pick one. I don't care who it is. You got to pick one.
Yeah. I just remembered that Brian Kelly's now the coach of LSU, and all of a sudden I am just out on LSU.
Yep.
For Clemson I'm going to try DJ Ugalele.
Yep.
Yeah,
Bleacher
something like
Report
that.
had an article from January having their preseason Heisman rankings, or maybe it's preseason Heisman candidates, and he's the third one they have listed. It's not really rankings because they did list them before Bryce Young and CJ Stroud and Bijan Robinson and Caleb Williams, I believe, as well.
He's not starting week 6.
No.
So obviously, I'm hoping that it's just kind of a list of guys that may win Heisman and not their actual rankings, because that would be a little bit concerning to me.
It might be that Shipley guy, if anything, on Clemson, who's winning the Heisman. It's that Shipley running back they have.
Yeah, so we'll see about that. But as far as the kind of consensus top 2 teams, they're led by young quarterbacks heading into their second season as starters. Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Cole, I'll start with you. If you had the number 1 pick in the NFL draft next season, actually, we'll start with this. Which one of them has a better chance of winning the Heisman this season?
Oh, I just don't. I think because the Heisman has such a player voting attached to it, no one wants to see back-to-back. So I think CJ Stroud's going to win it. I actually thought last year CJ Stroud was going to win it. I put a bet on him to win it. He didn't win it. So
Double or nothing.
I think it's this year. I think it's almost a lock. I think unless there is a team that blows out everybody, Ohio State gets a loss. If he doesn't get hurt, the kid, he's going to put up numbers. I mean, they're loaded. So he's got plenty of targets. Like it could be, I think it could honestly, we see this be a year with like the Devonta Smith, Mac Jones, where CJ Stroud is just throwing ungodly numbers, but the receivers are doing so well that it may actually be like, all right, who's the real Heisman here? And that's the only way I could see it like switching from CJ Stroud. But also, I'm first pick overall. I'm taking CJ Stroud as well. It's got more of the NBA or NFL body. So
yeah, but he's an Ohio State quarterback, and my friend Mitch Fuller
tells
me that Ohio State quarterbacks cannot be successful in the NFL. Justin Fields is my like hope to prove him wrong. Although CJ Stroud would also be a nice hope as well. Logan, would you also pick CJ Stroud for Heisman next season?
I probably would. I hate to be the same reason, but I had it written down. You're not gonna see it back to back. Like college football doesn't want that. But don't be surprised, just like Cole said, if their top receiver in
Jackson Smith.
Yeah. If he wins the Heisman, I'm not gonna be surprised at all. But I would probably lean towards CJ Stroud. However, I mean, Young's gonna put up numbers. I mean, he's going to have plenty of weapons. They've got some transfer receivers. I know they took Burton from Georgia, but they just got the number 1 JUCO receiver too. I mean, he's going to have targets, and it's Bama. Like he very well could run it back. But I do think Ohio State's offense is going to be the best offense next year for sure. And that's just going to kind of give the edge to him, at least for the Heisman. As far as NFL, that's another thing. But for Heisman, yeah.
Well, let me ask you, since there's a really good chance that your Falcons have the number 1 pick, which one do you want running your offense? You want Jalen Carter running your offense next season? Yikes.
I would say right now, week 1 of this NFL season, I would take CJ Stroud. That could change by the time next year's draft comes around. Like if I'm an NFL GM right now and I could pick one of them randomly before this season, I'd want CJ Stroud right now. But this time, come next April, it could be Bryce Young. I do lean. I hate when people pull the size card. But
it's relevant. It's relevant.
It might come into play here. Not that Bryce is.
He just
small, but I mean, if we're gonna be honest, he's 4 pounds heavier according to Google and 1 inch shorter than Stetson. And Stetson gets all the crap in the world for being short and tiny and everything. He's like I think Bryce is like 195 or 195 or something. Stetson's like 190. Like he is tiny.
He just throws it 40 yards further than Stetson, but
that can
and a lot harder and a lot more accurate.
But one wins and the other doesn't. But that's another that's another story. But I do think size that come into play. And you just said Ohio State quarterbacks don't do anything. Norton Bama's don't either. You got Hurts, who might do something. Mac Jones sure did fine, but that's like Bill Belichick, so that doesn't count.
We're talking about Glass Boy.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, you
So
got
you
to.
could argue that both of these schools are not gonna, their quarterbacks are not gonna translate. I'm hoping Desmond Ritter's the truth, and we can do something else. Maybe we're picking at like 3 instead, and we can take Will Anderson. But if I'm an NFL GM, I'm taking Anderson at 1 over both quarterbacks. That's just me.
Yeah,
that dude's
same.
Yeah, that dude's
So even if you have zero future at quarterback, like let's say Desmond Ridder just
sucks,
doesn't pan out at all. Marcus Mariota just is an average vet, probably
That's
even worse
proven,
than you're
yeah.
expecting. And
Well, yeah, and exactly. And if that happens, we're not winning the Super Bowl next year. Take Will Anderson and then get a quarterback the year after. We're gonna suck for a while.
yeah,
At that point. And there could be a quarterback. Take Caleb Williams the next year.
Oh,
Will Anderson at 1, Caleb Williams next year is better than getting CJ Stroud and picking at 11 the year after that. Take Will Anderson. Take Will Anderson and suck again. And then get your quarterback the next
and then you could fire your coach too.
Yeah, exactly.
but what happens when Will Anderson takes over the NFL as a rookie?
Well,
It's like a Micah Parsons kind of deal,
injury. Like, oops, his hammy's hurting. He's out for
the injury.
In practice, just trip him real quick and just
he's got 10 sacks through 3 games, and it's like, oh nah, yeah, crazy injury practice. Like,
can't
he's
have
out
this
year. That's crazy.
He's got 7 pick sixes and 2 fumble recoveries for touchdowns. That's too much, guys. We need him out of here.
Yeah, they'll be like,
he's literally scoring more than the offense. Like, get him out of here.
Shut him down.
No. Well, we will continue to stay in the SEC East. Cole, I'm going to let you go second on this one because, like with the UGA topic, I know you're going to want to bring this home. Logan, sorry, Cole, for argument's sake, we're going to go ahead and just assume that UGA is the best team in the SEC East.
Pretty
and
fair.
That they're going to win it. I don't think it's an outlandish assumption whatsoever. I'm sorry if I'm just going to ask you to get in that mindset for when you get on. Logan, who's the second best team in the SEC East?
Yeah, I mean, emphasis on the second for sure. I'm glad you made that clear. But I really think there's only 2 options. I mean, it's Tennessee and Kentucky. People are going to want to put Florida in there. They open against Utah. That's a loss. They play Bama next year. That's a loss. They play Georgia. That's a loss. That's not going to get it done. And it probably, as much as it pains me to say, it's probably Tennessee. And this time next year, people are going to be saying the whole Tennessee's back because Tennessee probably goes 10-2. No offense, Cole. You probably lose to us and lose to Bama, and that's a good year. And no offense, but that might happen the next 8 years. But y'all are definitely on your way back. I mean, I think Kentucky has Will Levis, I think is how you say his last name, their quarterback that apparently is a first rounder in some drafts. I don't understand that. That'll be the Jake Fromm effect where he was a first rounder. Then I don't remember if he got drafted.
It's like the 6th round.
Yeah. So no, he wasn't drafted. And then, so I think it will be Tennessee, and 10-2 that'll get the obnoxious Tennessee fans back into it. This time next year, it'll be a lot more fun because then we'll start having the question of, is Tennessee going to beat Georgia this year, beat Bama this year? But I do see them going 10-2 and getting the job done. And that could get you into New Year's Six Bowl. I mean, we'll see how the rest of the field plays out, but it's definitely going to be Tennessee or Kentucky, but probably Tennessee, Cole.
Cole, just your time to shine, baby.
My biggest thing, and it has been for years, I hate how the SEC is East and West, but the East games against teams from the East are not the only criteria to win the East. It's the whole SEC. It's your whole SEC schedule. And I always have an issue with that because we play Alabama every year. So you'd have seen Tennessee 2016. We would have been in the SEC championship, but Florida made it over us because they played a garbage LSU team and we played number 1 Alabama. It's one of those things that drives me crazy. So for that reason, on top of a lot of other reasons, Georgia is going to be number 1 because their schedule is a lot easier. And Tennessee, we could go 10-2, but that does put us on the back burner of we got to beat Pitt at Pitt. We got to beat LSU at LSU. And then we own Kentucky, so I'm never worried about Kentucky. So, but Tennessee, I think we got 2 locked up. Our offense they're explosive. We have the best receiver in the SEC with Cedric Tillman. He's coming back with 10 plus touchdowns, 1,300 yards. The man is unreal. We have Hendon Hooker, who is the second best quarterback in the SEC. He's so efficient. He throws. If he played a whole season last year with the full playbook, his numbers may have been right. I mean, on par with Bryce Young, which I mean they were pretty close already. You look at our offensive line. We lost Cade Mays, the Georgia favorite, but
you improved. Congratulations.
But our offensive line is deep. That was the thing last year. We just had starters, and then it was just we're praying no one gets hurt. And this year we're pretty deep, and we got Jalen Hyatt, a name you're going to hear. No one really knows about him yet. He had a kind of a year where he was there, but he kind of wasn't mentally there. And this year he's locked in and gained a bunch of weight. He's fast, man. He's a great receiver. He'll be one of the best receivers in the SEC this year. So I really do think Tennessee this year will lock up the two. And like Logan said, this will be finally the year where we look at it like, okay, who is going to win the SEC? It's not like, okay, Georgia's going to win. They're going to make it there. But like, maybe not. Because I don't see Florida coming back for a while. I think Billy Napier is Butch Jones light. He's Butch Jones who can't recruit, and that's a bad sign. I think Kentucky has peaked. I mean, listen, They got their first round draft pick, Will Levis. They still can't beat us. And we had the worst defense in the SEC last year. So Kentucky's not going anywhere. We don't even have to talk about the rest of the East because we know they're done. Like they're bye week games at this point.
The only thing I will add, if I can, is the thing that's hurting y'all the most is, like you said, next year it'll be a question of can y'all beat Georgia or whoever, but this is our rebuilding year.
Yeah.
And we're still probably going to win. So we're going to be like, we could win the Natty in 23 or whatever. That will be the hardest thing is like all of our rebuilding stuff with Rick's not going to take 2 or 3 years. We're going to be ready to go again in just 1 year.
But
y'all could be as well too.
Yeah. See, our problem is this year, our offense is there. Our defense is not. Yeah. And it's far from being there. We got recruits last year. This year's recruiting class, man, they have 2 top 10 edge rushers this next year. Like they're building up, but they're not there yet. Like, I'm no Tennessee fans going to sit here and say, oh, we can maybe finish middle of the pack. No, we're a bottom tier defensive team until they show us otherwise. Because right now we lost our best defensive player. And it's going to be, he didn't play in our bowl game. And it was very evident that he was not there. And when that happens, your defense is hurting.
Also, I would take KJ Jefferson over your guy. You said he was the second best quarterback in the SEC. I'll take KJ first.
No shot.
Well, Cole, I appreciate the rationality and the honesty behind it, acknowledging the lack of defense that Tennessee has. But this might be actually the year where Cole can have something to celebrate. I know Cole's probably expecting a national championship, an SEC championship every year, but this year we might see some success from the Volunteers staying in the SEC East, a team that we really haven't talked about because they've been hot garbage for a good while. But Spencer Rattler is now in South Carolina, arguably would have been a top 2 pick in this past draft if nobody played football last college season. Preseason, he probably would have gone top 3, top 2. And now he's coming back for another season and he may not get drafted, but if he does, it's probably not gonna be first round. Cole, I'll start with you. Is Spencer Rattler gonna make a comeback?
No. South Carolina is very overhyped. I actually know one of the quarterbacks in the South Carolina room right now, and he says Shane Beamer's offense is very, very hard to learn. And he's a really smart kid, learns plays quickly. He transferred schools twice, and he's like, man, I'm kind of lost. Like, so when you have, I'm not gonna name drop him just in case this ever gets big, and then he's like, you're
one
lost?
Of our 5 viewers is gonna.
You're like, Jesus, you're lost? No, but he says it's really tough, and so that's where I'm kind of like going off that knowledge alone. I'm like, okay, is Spencer Rattler really gonna go in there, learn this offense flawlessly, and perform? I don't see it happening, especially because they're going through a gauntlet of a schedule. And they had the SEC schedule with Clemson. I mean, that's tough. That's a tough year. So I would say they're not back yet. I think South Carolina as a whole is getting better, but they're not there yet. And he's not there yet.
So what I heard was that if he's able to perform this year, he's totally understood the offense and he'll translate well as an NFL quarterback because he managed to understand this offense.
Honestly, yes. And I think he could be one of those guys who has an okay year and then actually translates a little bit better to the NFL. You may see him as in a backup role who comes in and plays kind of like that Jalen Hurts for the Eagles when Carson Wentz was there. I could see that kind of scenario happening with him where he just like you start seeing, oh, this is why he was one of the best high school prospects in the country. This is why, because he can do all these things. So I just don't know if he's going to get it together at South Carolina. And I think he might actually be, even though his size doesn't say it, he might be more of an NFL type guy than a college guy.
Well, this might be a make or break year for him if he actually wants to make it to the NFL to have a chance to prove what type of talent he is. Logan, do you see that happening at all?
I don't know. So I don't know how well y'all know this, but I cannot stand South Carolina. Like more than Tennessee, Florida, Georgia Tech. They are by far my least favorite like school in the country. Just can't stand them. And it pains me to say it, but I think he's going to have a good year. And I think the X factor in it all is their coach. Shane Beamer's a good guy. Like he is going to have him absolutely bought in. There's no way Rattler's not going to be bought in. I actually know a lot of people, or not a lot, but a decent amount of people who actually grew up in the same area as Beamer, played football with him and just grew up with him, are still in contact with him. He's a good guy. Yeah. There's no way that Rattler's not going to be bought in. Then it's kind of up to him. And, I think it's going to be as good of a year as South Carolina can have. Like, he's not going to go win the Heisman or anything because he doesn't have the people around him. They don't have the talent or the money that the rest of the SEC does. But he's going to do better than he did last year. I think he's going to start every game. He's not getting benched for anybody else. And I think it's more so the coach, not him. Beamer's that guy. As much as it hurts me to say, like he's going to do good things at South Carolina. And he's going to have Spencer bought in for sure. That's going to be no question. I think that was kind of the question at Oklahoma. I mean, he wasn't playing well, but it just wasn't working. He never felt invested with the coaching staff and with the players. There was a lot of back and forth with that. But I think week one, he's going to be bought in. He kind of knows this is his last chance. And he really might be an NFL guy, kind of like Cole's saying, rather than a college guy. Time will tell. But yeah, I do think it's going to work out pretty good. But more so coaching staff, not necessarily just him.
They may not make a bowl. I just looked at their schedule. They put their SEC East schedule with their two crossovers being Arkansas and Texas A&M with Clemson at the tail end.
No, that's what I'm saying. A good year relative to South Carolina. Like he's going to do fine, but yeah, he might win. It might be 3 wins. I don't know.
It's looking tough.
If maybe 2 wins. Yeah.
Hey, they play Georgia State first game, so I hear that's a tough one to start. So
could be a confidence booster for him right there, though.
That's what I thought too.
Or a reality check.
It's going to be a massive reality check.
Well, look, we thought we were coming here for some good UGA and Tennessee analysis, and apparently we have some South Carolina insiders. So that's good to know for the future if Spencer Rattler manages to get more than 2 wins. But if we're moving out of the SEC finally to go to a team that may end up back in the SEC in a few years, after a horrible season for Clemson standards last season, considering the past near decade that they've had, do they have a chance to bounce back and kind of get back to being the Clemson that we know? Logan, you are nodding your head yes. I don't know if you're actually saying yes.
Yeah.
Is that happening?
I think it can happen. I was actually at the UGA Clemson game this past year, and man, I have never heard a fan. We were surrounded by Clemson fans, and I have never heard a fan base hype up one single player. Well, kind of like what Cole does with any Tennessee and basketball player in the NBA. This is what they did with their running back, Shipley. And I looked into him, and he seems legit. And obviously one player is not going to bring them back, but he's the real deal. And their offense can't be as bad as it was last year. I mean, they're probably going to make a quarterback change. But the biggest reason why I think they might bounce back, they're in the same spot as Georgia is. Georgia, no offense, Cole, Georgia just has to beat Oregon. That's all they have to do. Beat Oregon. Sure. You're 12-0 more than likely in the SEC championship. They have Notre Dame next year. You just got to beat Notre Dame. If you can beat Notre Dame, you're more than likely going 12-0. And I don't care who they play in the ACC championship. They're going to be fine. So they're kind of in the same spot where they just need that one big win. And they very well may not win that one game. But if they can get that, they're going to be 12-0. And then they're probably going to be 13-0. And at that point, that kind of goes back to what Cole was saying. If that does happen, USC does it, Bama does it, Ohio State doesn't, there is a good chance 2 SEC schools actually don't get in this year. But yeah, I definitely think they can have a bounce back year. It can't be as bad as last year.
That's facts. It honestly, with Clemson, it's like if they don't bounce back, it just shows how good Trevor Lawrence really was and how good Deshaun Watson really was. And but you look at it this year or this past year, it was the first year that they had a huge question mark at quarterback, and it did not pan out. Like he was not good. He didn't look like the 5-star he was cracked up to be. But the kid that they do have coming in is a stud. That it's Cade Klubnik. He is a stud. And I do think, if anything, he is going to be the one to get them back on track. And like I said, Clemson had the ugliest 10-win season last year I've ever seen. And they still had it. I mean, they still won 10 games. And that's a feat. Like, they still bodied the ACC. So it was one of those where they didn't win the ACC championship, but they were one of the best teams in it. So I think last year could have been more of a fluke year when it comes down to it, and they get back on track. But because I believe in Dabo, I think Dabo is a good coach.
Gosh.
And listen, I don't know if I agree with the things he says about college football, and I think he whines a little too much. But when it comes back down to it, X and O's, the guy's a good coach, and he can put together a good team. So I think Clemson, I think they're going to be fine. I think they can make the playoffs. So maybe even stir it up a little bit. They may even win a game in the playoff.
Really? Well, making the playoffs shouldn't be, like you said, too terribly hard, considering their ACC schedule, which is kind of a good thing about if we could see some conference realignment, maybe see them play some real football earlier before the playoffs.
That'd be awesome.
But if we're moving to a Pac-12 team with a new quarterback and a new head coach, the Oregon Ducks brought in Dan Lanning from UGA and Bo Nix to come play quarterback. Logan, I'll start with you for this with the UGA guy. What is Oregon getting, and should we expect anything out of them this season? I know we've talked about the Pac-12 being a joke, basically, for USC to run through. Do they have a chance? Does Oregon do anything?
No. I mean, I think their floor is probably like 9-3. They're not going to be that bad, but super awesome for Dan Lanning, first of all. Like, that was a big opportunity for them, a big hire for them. But I mean, they're not going to necessarily be bad. They're still Oregon. I'm not worried about them week 1. I think we'll be fine. I don't think we're going to come out and win by 50. But I think we will be fine, especially with the game being in Atlanta. And it's the first game after we won a national championship. Like, we're going to come out hot. Also, Kirby's not going to want to lose to Dan Lanning like that. He'll make sure that doesn't happen. But what makes me a little nervous is, so Bo Nix in 19, when he was at Auburn in 2019, I don't know if that was his best year at Auburn.
It was.
But it was his best performance against Georgia for sure. And Kenny Dillingham was his offensive coordinator, who is now the offensive coordinator at Oregon. So Bo is actually back with the same offensive coordinator he had at Auburn when he did have his best year. He went 30 for 50 that year against us with about 250, and we only won by 7. Granted, this was 3 years ago. I think Georgia's a whole different team. You know, it's all Kirby's players now and everything like that. But that was his best performance, and he now does have the same offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. So there's not going to be much adjustment. He's going to have a different head coach, but that's probably an improvement from whoever was at Auburn. I can promise you Dan Lanning will be a fine coach to play for, but that familiarity with his offensive coordinator is going to help him some. They're probably 9-3, maybe 10-2. I mean, they're not beating USC. They're not beating Utah. Probably it, though. I mean, it really might be 10-2, 9-3. So at least the same offensive coordinator, that's going to help a lot.
Yeah, and I don't think Kirby is going to want to let one of his former coordinators beat him that quickly, considering how long it took him to beat Saban.
Correct.
Cole, does Oregon make any noise whatsoever next season or over the next few seasons, really?
Next season, Lanning's recruiting. Listen, he's blowing it up right now. So I think this reminds me a little bit of the year, actually Kirby's first year at UGA, where they had a pretty good team. They had, Jacob Eason going into it. It's like they looked like they could, cause a splash, but overall, I think they won like 8 games maybe. It was just kind of like a all right, well, he's a good coach. He's got to recruit. And that's what Dan Lanning, this is what they're gonna win 8 games. They may win 7. They're gonna lose some games they shouldn't. They're gonna look good in some games and then they're gonna look bad in some games. Bo Nix he's not it. So I think going to the future, Oregon will look really good. Dan Lanning, I think, was a great hire. Taking away from that Georgia staff is a good thing for anybody else in the SEC. So I was all for Dan Lanning going to Oregon. And so I do. I think it's a great hire, and I think Oregon will get there. Not this year, though. I actually don't think it's going to be close in the first game. I think it's going to be like a nice 45-3 to 7.
I hope you're right.
I think it's going to be one of those where you're like, man, this Oregon team sucks. And then they come around and they start looking a little bit better, but they're not it yet. They'll get there. Not right now, though.
Well, I hope you're right. And I know it'll be a learning experience for Oregon right off the bat if they lose like that, but something to build off of. So we got to keep it positive like that. But Cole, I won't ask you to talk about anything else any longer. We're going to get to our final topic. He's finishing his drink. The top quarterbacks in the 2023 high school class. Number 1, Arch Manning, committed to Texas. Number 2, Malachi Nelson, committed to USC. And 3, Cole, can you give me the actual pronunciation?
It's Nico Amo-Oliva.
Beautiful. He's committed to Tennessee. He's ranked 3rd in the quarterback class, but my dear friend Cole Kendall is going to convince us that he's not only the best quarterback in this class, but the best one to ever throw a football. I'm just kidding. Just the best one in this class will be enough for us, Cole. The floor is yours.
I wish I had text receipts from about 8 months ago when I was like, really, because like when the year ends, the college football season ends, I kind of start looking.
You mean week 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, your college football season.
Your college football season.
I start deep diving into the quarterbacks, because that's what you got to do. You got to deep dive, see who's coming up. And when I deep dive through Nico, I was like, this kid's good. Like, this kid looks like he's got it all. I mean, he threw 33 touchdowns, 1 interception his last season. I'm like, okay, this guy's got it. And then when the quarterback rankings started like getting like flush, I was like, okay, 3rd, I don't know. I said when I was going through it in a text with a couple of my friends, I said, I think Nico is going to be the number 1 quarterback in the class. And this is before I thought Tennessee could get him. And then he unofficially visited. We threw him the bag. He committed. And I was like, oh, my God, we got the best quarterback. And the reason why I say that is Arch Manning's number 1. The Manning name does help. Some people are like, oh, Arch Manning should be a 3-star. No, I think Arch Manning's still a 5-star. I still think he's a top 10 player in this class. I do think his competition's pretty bad. So that's going to skew me. Nico plays some studs, so that kind of helps. And then there's Malachi Nelson. And the reason why I don't like Malachi Nelson as much as I like Nico is because I'm obsessed with Nico, I watched their 7-on-7 game. And Nico bodied him, and his team won. And Nico I know it's 7-on-7, he looked better. He was dialing it in. He's just better than Malachi Nelson was. So I think personally, Nico's probably the best kid in the class. And I do think Nico's going to start as a freshman. And I think he is going to be the future of the Tennessee football program.
Logan, do you have anything to add to that? I mean,
yeah,
with Nico, even with Arch Manning, do you think?
Yeah, my thing with Arch, I think he'll be fine. The competition thing worries me. The biggest reason it worries me is it's kind of like Jacob Eason with Georgia. He was a huge recruit.
A lot of similarities.
He played in Washington. Like, that's a lot different than football in Georgia and Florida and Texas. Like, he played out in Washington. So I was never really sold on Jacob Eason either. So the competition thing with Arch really worries me. However, I do think it was a good move. He didn't go where Eli went. He didn't go where Peyton went. He went to a school that is trying to get back, and he went to a school that has a lot of money that's also moving to the SEC. And I mean, if you're a big time recruit, money and SEC do kind of jump out at you. So I do think it was a good personal move. The Nico thing, the only really thing I have to say about him, and I know Cole's not going to like it, that dude's not finishing his career at Tennessee. Like, he will probably go there as a freshman. He's going to put that check in the bank.
Well, that's different. That's what's different. He doesn't have.
He's not finishing. He's not finishing at Tennessee.
His NIL deal is actually over a course of several years. So if he leaves, he doesn't get the money.
They have him locked into a contract.
They have him locked into a contract.
They signed him to a Supermax.
As soon as he breaks that contract,
they'll sign him another one.
The other school will throw him the bag.
No,
he'll be.
Nico.
I'm not even saying it's like Georgia or Bama or anything. I'm not saying he's going to be bad. He's not finishing at Tennessee.
Nico is the thing about Nico that has kind of been crazy to me is he's a loyal guy. Listen, the guy was going to win.
He's a junior in high school.
Whoa, time out.
He when he was dating girls in sophomore year, Logan.
Time out. Nico was going to win the Elite 11. He was a lock to win it. He's a camp killer. That's why he's ranked on top of how good he is. Camp killer. He was going to win the Elite 11. He dropped out of the Elite 11. Everybody was like, what? What on earth? Why would the number 3, the favorite to win? It's because he's a volleyball player. And there's volleyball team made it to nationals. And he said, hey, I got to drop out of the biggest quarterback competition because I promised my team that I was going to play with them. And that right there already shows you're like, okay.
I'm so mad because I respect the heck out of
that.
Yeah, so
me too. I was so pissed. I was getting ready to watch the Elite 11.
I respect that.
I looked at my phone, one of my guys I follow on Twitter. I see Nico not playing in Elite 11. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Did he get hurt? Like what on earth? And then his interview came out. He's like, hey, my volleyball team, they won nationals too, which was sick. But it's just like, he's like, this is the last time I'm going to play with my brothers. So I'm going to do it. So I was like, okay, this kid's not only he's good on the football field, but he's got some loyalty. And also he's got a little brother coming up who's going to be the number 1 kid in his class. I think he's going into his sophomore year. His name's Madden. And the kid can play. And he's big in on Tennessee right now too. So I definitely could see it being the back-to-back brothers kind of deal. And listen, we're going to throw him the money. They love him. Heupel loves it. Josh Heupel is very much what I've seen in his recruiting is he finds his guys and he sticks with it. Everyone in God's green earth, beginning of the recruiting, Knoxville, Tennessee, wanted Arch Manning to be in an orange jersey. Everybody wanted to see us unretire 16, put it on his back. Everybody wanted to see that. But we stopped recruiting him very early on. And I think a lot of it was like, hey, we don't want to even go after him. A lot of other teams are after him, obviously. But Heupel basically was just like, he's not our guy. Like, this is who I want. And went after Nico hardcore. It was like the only quarterback we were recruiting. So I think he stays. And I think he finishes. And I think he's going to be freaking good. I think he has a chance to turn this Tennessee program, keep it going up, and actually put us in maybe a playoff potentially.
The issue is going to be when he gets in there and he loses to Georgia and Bama and he's like, oh.
Nah.
He gets hit 12 times in the first half.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, the thing about Nico too is he's recruiting.
I believe it.
Listen, Heupel is, he's doing his job, but look, like all these guys that are committing, for example, that Francis, I don't know how to say his last name, just committed to Miami. Tennessee wasn't on his radar. He was not ever going to go to Tennessee. We ended up being in his top 3 because Nico asked him to come there. So he's on all these guys. Sham is another guy who literally said, Nico, all about Nico, loves the guy. He's all on him. Every single one of their recruits, they recruited Nico is like all with him, and they all say something about him. So he's recruiting all these kids, and I don't think he's going to leave them because he's recruited some kids that I don't not think would have came to Tennessee yet. I think it would have been a couple of years before we got him. But, I mean, we're landing defensive recruits. Our defense is awful. Like, we're basically telling these guys, hey, you're going to get scored on a lot. Your stock may dip, but maybe we can get you going right. And it's like when you're landing defensive recruits with the worst defense in the SEC, I mean, he's doing something.
And now you don't have to use McDonald's bags. Now you just do it.
No, we just do it in front of everybody's faces. We're like, here, you want $1 million? You want $1 million? Like, I mean, we're just tossing it around. I love it. I love the NIL deals.
He is going to be very good. I do know that, but time will tell.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like
he's got one more year of high school. Sorry, he's
one more year.
When's your quarterback now leaving? So is he gone after this year?
Yep.
So he could just come right in and
start 1 year before he transfers.
No.
I would say get some highlight film and then go to USC or something. That'll be
You're
good.
you're gonna see me start trading for a lot of dynasty picks in a lot of these leagues around 3 years after next year.
We can do a trade right now. We can go 2027, 26, whatever.
Well, he's
I'm
gonna
gonna-
need that 2028 to get Nico's little brother.
Yeah.
You can have 26 through 28 right now. They're all yours.
Well, before we close, I do want to discuss Arch Manning a little bit more. I know we just talked up Nico, but if I'm reading this correctly, Arch Manning is the first player since Vince Young, and actually joins Vince Young as the only players to have a perfect composite score on 24/7 Sports.
Him and
So
Quentin Ewers also got one.
okay, well, whatever I'm looking at doesn't have that, but
All three to Texas.
what does that mean, Cole? Does that mean that this guy is? I mean, I also was talking earlier about the article I saw that said that if his last name was Smith, he'd be a 3-star.
This year, what I've learned about the quarterback recruiting over time is it's not like it was when Vince Young was coming out. Vince Young was about who you're playing, how good you play them. Now it's more of it's thrown in there. It's also these camps. They want to see how you throw the ball, how you would. I mean, he's a Manning. His mechanics are flawless, and that's where I think his perfect rating goes. Is I think it's more of the camps and how far he can throw it, how hard he can throw it. And the intangibles, he's 6'4", he's got a perfect quarterback body. So, but I don't think he's got it when it comes to competition. I think he is going to compare more to a guy like Brock Vandergrift, where he needs to sit a year and he needs to take it all in. Like if Brock Vandergrift would have walked down to UJ's field as a freshman, he would have gotten booed off the field because he wasn't ready. Like there was no.
He had to score 7 points though. That's it.
Yeah, I mean it's probably true, but he
That's
would
not
have
a field
gotten,
goal and you go undefeated.
You're not wrong. You are right.
he would have gotten booed off the field because he wasn't ready. And then I think Arch is going to be that same way. So that's why I think Texas is actually a good thing for him because Ewers is most likely going to play first year he's there. He can take it all in, and then I do think he's going to be good. I think he went to a terrible place. I think Texas is not back. I think Sarkisian's a bad coach, and I think he might regret that. But only time will tell. I don't think he's the number one quarterback in the class, but I do think he's still a 5-star quarterback, and he's still a Manning. So I mean, every Manning has panned out. No matter how you look at it, they're all worked out. So he's still a Manning.
It just, I don't know. It's tough. I mean, the competition thing worries me, but he's gonna be fine. It's just, I try not to get too much into the hype because, like, look at a guy like Stetson, like. He's not an Arch man. You got to have so many people around you. And yeah, Texas has money, but you still got to convince them. Like at the end of the day, they're going to want to win games. Like you've got to have a full team around you. And that's honestly more important than your quarterback. I know I'm a little biased because of what Georgia had and what they just did, but
Georgia is the first team to do that too. Usually it is the quarterback. You have to have a good quarterback to win.
I mean, I'm not saying you could go out there with anybody for sure. And Stetson is a good quarterback. He's not Bryce Young, but he's fine.
No.
But you do have to have a little bit more around them.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. And like you said, he's probably not playing for what this season, the next season. He's probably not playing for a while.
I think he'll play as a sophomore. I think that's when, or a redshirt freshman.
And with the way things going now, Texas could be in the Big Ten at that point. Who knows? It's so far out. Like
honestly, he could decommit.
Yeah. Well, he's still a Manning.
Actually, that's what I meant to say. He might decommit when Sarkisian's fired in the 2 years. Like actually,
in a year.
Or in a year, yeah. He really might just decommit at that point when Sark's gone.
Yeah. Absolutely. I wouldn't be shocked.
No.
And he's still a Manning. So, of course, in a playoff game last season, they lost 49-7. He went 7 for 16 with 44 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Blows it in the playoffs. Just like Peyton.
Most playoff losses in NFL history for a quarterback, Peyton Manning.
But we'll see if he can
2 Super Bowls
improve on the family name.
200 yards combined.
Well,
hey, two rings are 2 rings, man. That's
2 Super Bowls.
And then Eli beat Tom Brady twice. So
that's Tom Brady's dad.
Yeah. Well, see, that's their opposite. Eli's horrible in the regular season. He gets in. He's not losing. Peyton's not going to lose in the regular season. He gets in. It's bad.
We'll just see if Arch Manning's just the best of both worlds. I mean, it hasn't shown so far, but that sounds like the best quarterback of all time if you can be Peyton in the regular season and Eli in the playoffs. But that is what we have for episode 6 of the Hypothetically Speaking podcast, our first college football episode with two very knowledgeable super fans and some South Carolina insiders. So thanks for listening, and fellas, thanks for joining me.
Of course, anytime.
Yeah, yes, sir. Thanks for having us.